The Tandy 1000 was the first in a line of more or less IBM PC-compatible home computer systems produced by the Tandy Corporation for sale in its RadioShack chain of stores. Overview: in December 1983, an executive with Tandy Corporation, maker of TRS-80 computers, said about the new IBM PC JR home computer, "I'm sure a lot of people will be coming out with PC JR lookalikes. The market is big." Released in November 1984, the $1,200 Tandy 1000 was designed as an inexpensive PC clone with enhancements compatible with the PC JR, but with a better keyboard. How could IBM have made that mistake with the PC JR? An amazed Tandy executive said regarding its chiclet keyboard, and another claimed that the 1000 is what the PC JR should have been. Although the press saw the computer as Tandy, the former personal computer leader, admitting that it could no longer focus on proprietary products in a market the IBM PC dominated, the 1000 sold more units in the first month than any other Tandy product and by early 1985 was its best-selling computer. The 1000 included joystick ports like the PC JR, and copied its 16-color graphics and 3-voice sound, but not the PC JR ROM cartridge ports. Since IBM discontinued the PC JR soon after the 1000's release, Tandy quickly removed mentions of the PC JR in its advertising while emphasizing the 1000's PC compatibility. The machine and its many successors was successful unlike the PC JR, partly because the Tandy 1000 was sold in ubiquitous RadioShack stores and partly because it was less costly, easier to expand, and almost entirely compatible with the IBM PC. The PC JR's enhanced graphics and sound standards became known as Tandy compatible. With its graphics, sound, and built-in joystick ports, the 1000 was the best computer for PC games until VGA graphics became popular in the 1990s. Software companies of the era advertised their support for the Tandy platform. 28 of 66 games that Computer Gaming World tested in 1989 supported Tandy graphics. Successors to the 1000 appended 2 or 3 letters to the name, after a space. In a few instances, after these letters a slash was appended, followed by either a number or additional letters. Although the original 1000 came in an IBM PC-like desktop case, some others used home computer-style cases with a keyboard, motherboard and disk drives in one enclosure. Design and architecture Tandy 1000 computers were some of the first IBM PC clones to incorporate a complete set of basic peripherals on the motherboard using proprietary ASICs, the forerunner of the chipset. All Tandy 1000 computers featured built-in Tandy video hardware with color graphics, enhanced sound, game ports compatible with those on the TRS-80 color computer, an IBM standard floppy disk controller supporting 2 drives, and a parallel printer port, all integrated into the motherboard. This is in addition to the hardware standard on the IBM PC, PC-XT, and PC-AT motherboards, keyboard interface, expansion slots, memory subsystem, DMA, interrupt controller, and math coprocessor socket. An IBM PC, XT or AT would require at least 4 expansion cards for similar hardware, 1 video graphics adapter card, 1 floppy disk controller card, 1 serial and parallel port card, and 1 sound card with a joystick port. Therefore, the 5 XT slots of the original Tandy 1000, 1000 Texas, 1000 SX, and similar models remained available for other hardware, making them equivalent or better than the 8 slots in IBM's XT and AT models. The earlier models of the Tandy 1000 had a composite video output, and could be used with a color or monochrome composite monitor, or a TV with an RF modulator. The original 1000 and SX had a light pen port. Unlike most PC clones, several Tandy 1000 computers had MS-DOS built into RAM and could boot in a few seconds. Tandy bundled DeskMate, a graphical suite of consumer-oriented applications, with various Tandy 1000 models. The original line was equipped with the Intel 8088 CPU, which was later extended to faster clock speeds, and also the 8086, 80286, and toward the end of the line with the RSX, 80386SX processors. Tandy 1000s used Phoenix BIOS. Common models of the machine included the Tandy 1000, 1000X, 1000HX, 1000SX, 1000 Texas, 1000SL, 1000RL, and 1000TL. With the exception of the RLX and RSX, the Tandy 1000 machines are XT-class machines, which cannot support extended memory despite some models using 80,286 processors, though expanded memory may be used on an 8-bit LIMM's compliant memory board. The RLX is an oddity, as it is an XT-class machine that supports 384 kilobytes of extended memory, and the RSX is a fully AT-class machine which can support up to 9 megabytes of extended memory. Hard disk drives Tandy 1000 computers did not feature integrated hard disk controllers until the release of the Tandy 1000 TL/2, which featured an onboard XT controller. At this time hard disks were very expensive and needed only by high-performance users. However, it was possible to add a hard drive to most Tandy 1000 computers. Most of the desktop-type Tandy 1000 units could accept regular 8-bit ISA bus MFM, RLL and SCSI controllers like typical XT-class machines. However, care had to be taken when configuring the cards so that they do not cause conflicts with onboard Tandy design peripherals. For most Tandy 1000 models other than the Compact X and HX that did not come already equipped with a hard drive, Tandy offered hard disk options in the form of hard cards that were installed in one of the computer's expansion slots and consisted of a controller and drive mounted together on a metal bracket. Although this arrangement provided a neat physical coupling between the controller and the disk, single-sector internal transfers and dependence on the speed of the host machine to transfer data to memory meant that a trial-and-error approach was still needed to set the disk interleave correctly to ensure optimum transfer rates. Even then, transfer rates could be as low as 40 kilobytes per second for 8088 and 8086 machines. Starting with the Tandy 1000 TL/2, XTIDE controllers were integrated onto the motherboard. However, these are unable to support common ATIDE hard drives. The TL/2, TL/3, RL and RLX all use the XTIDE interface, where the later RSX was the first and only Tandy 1000 model computer to use a standard ATIDE interface. One option for contemporary users of these systems would be to install and use XTISA compact flash adapters, which may be less expensive to acquire than vintage MFM RLL or XTIDE hard drives and, potentially, the brackets needed to support them. This is also the most practical way to install a hard drive into a Tandy 1000X or HX, using an adapter cable that adapts the Mail Plus style connector to an 8-bit ISA card edge slot. Retirement By 1993, changes in the market made it increasingly difficult for Tandy Corporation to make a profit on its computer line. Tandy Corporation sold its computer manufacturing business to AST Computers, and all Tandy computer lines were terminated. RadioShack stores then began selling computers made by other manufacturers, such as Compaq. Reception. Creative Computing called the original Tandy 1000 the machine IBM was too inept, incapable, or afraid to manufacture. It is sure to put a whopping dent not only into PCJR sales, but into sales of the PC Senior as well, favorably mentioning its low price, good PC software compatibility, and bundled DeskMate. InfoWorld noted the 1000's low price, predicted that the computer was really intended for the elusive home computer market, and speculated that in retrospect it might have been the PCJR's final straw. The magazine called the 1000 almost as fully IBM PC compatible as a computer can get, but gave DeskMate a mixed review and advised customers of the computer's inability to use full-length PC expansion cards. It concluded that by making the 1000 inexpensive and adaptable, and including DeskMate, Tandy produced a real home computer. AT Micro also approved of the 1000's PC compatibility and stated that the exterior design gives it a feeling of quality and confidence. The magazine concluded that Tandy's machine closely emulates the most basic functions of an IBM PC, and it does so at an affordable price. along with the security of Tandy's substantial support network, but wondered if people would buy the 1000 if IBM lowered the price of the PC byte called the 1000. A good, reasonably priced IBM PC clone that has most of the best features of the IBM PC and PC-JR. At current prices it is a very good alternative. It noted the high level of software compatibility and the good keyboard, and stated that DeskMate was fairly good. But a little extra programming work could have turned it into a much better program, noting that for example the word processor did not have a move command. The magazine also mentioned the computer's short slots. PC Magazine also noted the slots and criticized the Tandy 1000's fit and finish, but acknowledged the computer's low price and bundled hardware features. Selected Tandy 1000 models. Tandy 1000 The original Tandy 1000 was a large computer almost the size of the IBM PC, though with a plastic case over an aluminium lower chassis to reduce weight. The original Tandy 1000 featured a proprietary keyboard port along with 2 joystick ports on the front of the case. The rear featured an RGB monitor connector, an RCA-style composite video out connector, a single RCA-style monophonic line-level audio connector, a light pen port, and an edge card connector used to attach a parallel printer. The printer port followed the old Centronics standard and was not fully compatible with the parallel port found on PCs. The original Tandy 1000 came standard with one internal 5.25 inches double-density floppy disk drive, with an additional exposed internal bay usable for the installation of a second 5.25 disk drive. The floppy drives used the old-fashioned method of selecting the drive number with jumpers instead of the IBM cable twist. 128 kilobytes of memory was standard, with the computer accepting up to 640 kilobytes of total memory with the addition of expansion cards. MS-DOS 2.11, DeskMate 1.0, and a keyboard with the same layout as the Tandy 2000s were included with the computer. Like the PC-JR, the Tandy 1000 motherboard did not supply DMA, but unlike that system, it could have DMA added with a memory expansion board. While the Tandy 1000 had 3 XT-compatible expansion slots, early Tandy memory upgrade boards took up 2 of the slots to get to 640 kilobytes. Because the slots were 1 or 2 inches in length instead of the PC's 13 inches, full-length cards did not fit, but reviewers noted that the many built-in hardware features reduced the need for cards. A later revision of the original Tandy 1000 model was the Tandy 1000A. This revision fixed bugs, scanned expansion cards for bootable ROMs, and added a socket for a math coprocessor. Tandy 1000 HD The original Tandy 1000, like most home computers sold at the time, did not have a hard disk drive. The Tandy 1000 HD was essentially an original Tandy 1000 with a hard disk option factory installed. The factory hard disk had a capacity on the order of 10 or 20 megabytes. Tandy 1000X and SX The Tandy 1000X was designed as an entry-level IBM-compatible personal computer. The X was a compact computer that had the keyboard and 5.25 inches floppy drive built into the computer casing. The 5.25 inches drive was accessible on the right-hand side of the computer. The X was marketed as a starter system for people new to computing, and sold for $1,000 from RadioShack in December 1986. The X and later the HX would be among the most popular of the Tandy 1000 line because of their low price. The X doubled the onboard memory to 256 kilobytes. The X had a 7.16 MHz 8088 and one internal 5.25 inches floppy drive. An external drive could be connected to a port on the back. A useful feature for the X and later systems is the ability to boot off either drive, as the drives can be logically swapped when the system boots, so that the drive that is normally drive B, becomes drive A, and vice versa, and the drives remain swapped until the system is powered off or reset. The X was upgradable by Tandy Plus cards, and system had bays for 3. The Plus cards connector was electrically identical to the ISA slot connector, but used a Berg-style 62-pin connector instead of a 62-contact ISA card edge connector. The RAM could be upgraded in the X and later the HX to 640 kilobytes, but required a plus memory expansion card. This card also provided DMA. Other plus cards could be installed to add serial ports, a 1200 baud modem, a clock calendar and bus mouse board and a proprietary Tandy network interface. The Tandy 1000SX was essentially an upgraded reissue of the original Tandy 1000 with the additional features of the X. It used a 7.16 MHz 8088-2 processor, had 384K of memory, came with either 1 or two 5.25 inches internal floppy disk drives, had the light pen port like the original Tandy 1000. Unlike the X, it did not have a volume dial or headphone jack, but did have an adjustable potentiometer inside the system to control the volume of the internal speaker. The Tandy X was a Tandy SX rebadged for sale in Walmart stores. The SX are drop-in compatible with NEC's V20 processor for a noticeable improvement in performance. The 1000X came with MS-DOS 2.11 and personal diskmate on 5.25 inches 360 kilobytes diskettes. The 1000SX came with MS-DOS 3.2 and diskmate 2 on 5.25 inches 360 kilobytes diskettes. While diskmate 2 used a text-based interface, personal diskmate used a graphical interface and also supported a mouse-like cursor using a joystick mouse driver or a Tandy bus mouse. The MS-DOS was a version specialized for and only bootable on the Tandy 1000, as it would announce on the screen of any other PC-compatible one tried to boot with it. It included a version of Basica with support for the enhanced CGA graphics modes and 3 voice sound hardware of the Tandy 1000. The Tandy 1000 SX and later the TX were the first models in the Tandy 1000 line to have a built-in DMA controller. Adding the DMA chip improved the speed of diskette operations and IBM PC compatibility of these earlier Tandy 1000 models and ensured that input from a serial port or keyboard would not be ignored during floppy drive access. Tandy 1000 HX and TX the Tandy 1000 HX was an updated version of the X. It was mostly the same machine, but had two 3.5 inches floppy bays instead of one 5.25 bay, and came with a 720 kilobytes floppy drive. It also had Tandy MS-DOS 2.11 and ROM, which could be accessed by starting the computer with no bootable disk present. By putting the basic elements of DOS and diskmate in ROM and eliminating the memory test on startup, the HX will boot very quickly compared to other contemporary Tandy machines. System settings changed with a setup program and was stored via an EEPROM, and the system could be set to boot a program from the A drive, boot to DOS or personal diskmate 2. The HX uses the same CPU and clock speeds as the X, uses the same plus cards, keyboard and has the same ports as the X. It also came with 256 kilobytes of RAM on the motherboard. The HX's sound output has a distinctive grounding loop noise, which was clearly audible when the volume knob was turned up above 50%. The 1000X and HX did not come with a hard drive, nor was it available from Tandy as an option, although a number of third-party vendors sold them. The design of the X and HX did not make it easy to add a hard drive, however. RadioShack eventually sold an adapter card that allowed the installation of a plus card into a standard ISA slot, such as those in the larger Tandy 1000 models. On the back of the machine there was a port which allowed a user to connect an external 360 kilobytes 5.25 inches or 720 kilobytes 3.5 floppy disk drive unit, available from Tandy. It is possible to fit an NEC V20 to a Tandy 1000X or HX. However, this may require disassembly of the computer. The 1000HX came with MS-DOS 2.11, modified to support 720 kilobytes drives and personal diskmate 2. Most versions of MS-DOS worked with the 1000HX, including DOS 3X, and some later versions. There was a quirk in the DOS 4.0 environment that prevented that version of DOS from working with Tandy 1000HX computers. The Tandy 1000TX was very similar to the Tandy 1000SX, having an external keyboard and similar casing. The major difference was the use of an 80286 CPU. Otherwise, it was nearly identical to the SX, including its unique parallel port edge connector and XT-style architecture. Unlike the SX, it features a 16-bit wide memory bus, but then-board peripherals are 8-bit wide. This means that the TX's 80286 can perform 16-bit transfers to and from memory, but DMA transfers and access to peripheral devices, including the video logic, is limited to 8-bit width only. The TX had a 3.5 inches internal floppy disk drive, with an optional additional internal 5.25 floppy disk drive. It contained ports for 2 joysticks in the front along with the keyboard, and included a volume control with a 1/8 headphone jack on the front. The back had all of the same ports as the Tandy 1000, except that the light pen port was replaced with an RS-232 serial port. The memory size was 640K and the computer came bundled with Personal Desk Mate 2. Tandy 1000 SL, SL/2, TL, TL/2, TL/3 The Tandy SL and TL series of computers were updates of the SX and TX respectively. In addition to offering a redesigned case, the machines offered a much more integrated motherboard with improved graphics and sound capabilities while dropping composite video output. The graphics controller was fully 16-bit wide and now supported 640A, 200A, 16 resolution as well as a Hercules graphics card compatible, 720A, 350 mode for monochrome monitors. The sound support now incorporated an 8-bit mono DAC-ADC, which was functionally similar to parallel port sound devices but was extended to support DMA transfers, microphone input capability, and sampling rates up to 48 kHz. The SLTL lines allowed then-board floppy controller, parallel port and serial ports to be disabled, which the earlier models did not. The SL and TL were also shipped with MS-DOS 3.3 and DeskMate 3 in ROM, and featured an EEPROM memory chip to store BIOS settings. The machines could also run normal MS-DOS 3X, 5, and 6 and Windows 2 and 3.0 operating systems, although Windows was limited to real mode operations. In common with many PC clones of the era, MS-DOS 4 was problematic and generally avoided. 1000 SL and SL/2. The Tandy 1000 SL and SL/2 feature an Intel 8086 processor running at 8 MHz, whose slightly higher clock speed and 16-bit bus gave these machines a modest, yet appreciable increase in performance over the 8088-based Tandy 1000 models. The CPU can be replaced with NEC's V30 processor for a further increase in performance. The SL came with 384 KB of RAM pre-installed, whereas the SL/2 offered 512 KB. Both machines can be expanded to 640 KB, although only 608 KB could typically be used by the operating system. The SL line have the mic earphone ports, volume knob and reset button on a small satellite board, which has an Lumen 386 audio power amplifier, a microphone input IC and a few small passives. There is also a jumper on the board to change the microphone input to a line-level output. The SL series offer 5 8-bit XT-compatible ISA slots, and do not come with pre-installed real-time clock chips, making them optional upgrades in the form of the plug-in Dallas DS1216E smartwatch. The SL is the only machine in the line that offers an upper 5.25 inches bay, and therefore the only model to offer two 5.25 bays, where the other models, including the SL/2 and the entire TL range, feature two upper 3.5 bays and one lower 5.25 bay. As a result, fitting a hard drive to an SL that already has the upper and lower 5.25 inches bays populated may require either the removal of one of the devices in those bays, or the installation of a hard disk card-style bracket which seats in one of the ISA slots. 1000 TL, TL/2 and TL/3, the Tandy 1000 TL and TL/2 use 8 MHz Intel 80286 processors, whereas the TL/3 uses a 10 MHz 80286. These computers had 640 kilobytes of memory pre-installed, with an option for an extra 128 kilobytes to be installed for use as video memory for the onboard video hardware. This extra 128 kilobytes could only be used for and by the onboard video controller, so it is impractical to expand onboard memory beyond 640 kilobytes if a VGA graphics card is installed. Unlike the SL series machines, the TL machines came with a smartwatch real-time clock logic built in, which is powered by a removable 3-volt CR2032 button cell battery on the motherboard. The TL offers 5 8-bit XT-compatible ISA slots, while the TL/2 and TL/2 offer 4 slots and an onboard 8-bit, XT-IDE-compatible hard disk interface, which was not compatible with standard AT-IDE hard drives. The TL series offer 2 upper 3.5 inches bays and 1 lower 5.25 bay. The TL/3 also offered a high-density floppy drive controller, though it only shipped with a double-density 3.5 inches drive. Tandy 1000 RL, RLHD, RLX, RSX. The Tandy 1000 RL RSX series were slimline desktop home computers. The RL and RLHD featured a 9.56 MHz 8086 processor, 512 kilobytes of RAM, smaller keyboard and mouse ports, a DB25 unidirectional parallel port instead of the Edge connector ports, and the SL's enhanced graphics and sound. Both the RL and RLHD included a built-in XT-IDE hard drive interface, and the RLHD came with a 20 MB drive pre-installed. The RLHD had a battery-backed real-time clock chip to store date and time information, with the RL lacked. These models also had MS-DOS and a portion of DeskMate and ROM, and could therefore boot much faster than many other computers on the market. The RLX was the mid-range offering of the RL line. It had a 10 MHz 286, and unlike other 286-based Tandy 1000s, it supported up to 384 kilobytes of extended memory. However, it was not a full AT-class machine, as it still had an 8-bit ISA bus and only 8 IRQs and 4 DMA channels. While the 3-voice sound chip and DAC were still present, Tandy Video was dropped. The RLX had VGA instead, offering 256 kilobytes of video memory and a maximum 640x480x16 graphics resolution. Also, the RLX featured a high-density, 1.44 MB 3.5 inches disk drive. The RLX offered 512 kilobytes of memory pre-installed, which could be expanded to 1 MB. The RSX offered a 25 MHz 80386SX processor, 2 16-bit ISA slots, a CUMOSS VGA video, an AT-compatible IDE interface and standard PS/2 keyboard and mouse ports. It was a full 386-class PC, and could use up to 9 MB of memory. The RSX still retained the 3-voice sound hardware and DAC, though the I/O address for the 3-voice sound chip was moved, rendering many games previously compatible with it unable to play music unless modified. The DAC could be used to emulate the Kavox speech thing via MS-DOS device drivers for limited sound support in MS-DOS-based software. This works with the game Chuck Yeager's Air Combat. Windows 3XX sound device drivers were available that works in Windows 95 on Tandy 1000 or SX. The Akumo's VGA graphics could be software updated with Cirrus Logic BIOS to allow VESAS VGA to function in Windows 95, as the Windows 3XX Tandy VGA drivers were insufficient for Windows 95. References. External links: RadioShack Tandy Computer Support, the official support site for Tandy computers, the Tandem Project, a Tandy 1000 emulator project, DOSBox MS-DOS, Tandy 1000, PC-JR emulator, MESS multiple emulator with Tandy 1000 HX support, TVDOG's archive, major archive of Tandy 1000 programs and documentation, Tandy 1000 basic programs, games and applications, the old school shrine, Tandy 1000 history and memories, Tandy 1000 webring, more sites on the Tandy 1000.